Good evening. Hang on a second. Tis I, Count Dracula. I am Count. Now, I am not the multi-voice reviewer, so I don't have many voices, but I do have one opinion. And today is Multi-Voice-Oween, and also Universal Monster-thon. And since Multi-Voice Reviewer had reviewed Van Helsing, I think it's appropriate that I, Count Dracula, review the king of all vampires. Of all. And it is none other than Universal Dracula. I have this on VHS. Of course, that's what Multi-Voice Reviewer have. Not many people know that Dracula was based from this old ancient novel written by Bram Stoker. Now, speaking of Bram Stoker, did you know that Multi-Voice Reviewer did a portrait of me? That's right. The first time I met Multi-Voice Reviewer, he made a portrait of this. And this is me, what I look like from the original novel. I was quite young back then. But I kept this portrait as a reminder that I will not attack Multi-Voice Reviewer and become his friend. So, a deal is a deal, so therefore, I decided to review Dracula just for the Multi-Voice-Oween and Universal Monster-thon. Now, after Bram Stoker created his novel as a prey, and when the silent films came out, sadly, Bram Stoker's widow refused any movie company to make a movie of Dracula. But one man had the audacity to make this. 1922 Nosferatu. But of course, they cannot use the Dracula name, so they called him Count Orlok, and he looks like this. Oh yeah, and the actor who played him is Max Schreck. I know, more rodent than Romeo, right? Until and after Bram Stoker's widow passed away, Universal wanted to make their version of Count Dracula, so they made this movie, which of course Multi-Voice Reviewer got it on DVD. Much better than the VHS. And of course they have the young and talented actor who is remembered as Dracula, none other than Bela Lugosi. And believe it or not, Bela Lugosi was from Romania. That's what he has, that undead Romanian accent. Like if you know what Dracula sounds like, this is what he sounds like. And believe it or not, this wasn't the only movie that Bela Lugosi played Dracula. Before he starred in the movie, he played in the Broadway play of Dracula. And it was released on Valentine's Day, believe it or not, and became a box office success. But the whole deal with him and Frankenstein, I'll get to that. I'll let the Multi-Voice Reviewer talk about Frankenstein. But now it's time to talk about Dracula. And of course, everybody remembers that the actor who played Van Helsing in that movie is none other than Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing. Yes, Edward Van Sloan was his name. And of course, this was the original face-to-face between Van Helsing and Count Dracula's Duel of Wit. And it was the best scene ever made in the movie. But after the movie have ended and came out on theaters, not many people know that California was part of the Hispanic country, part of Mexico. So that one American producer who decided to make a Spanish version of Dracula. And here it is. The Spanish version of Dracula. Now, I don't know about you, but I was impressed by the Spanish version. It had better camera angles, and it showed some scenes that the American one couldn't show. And of course, the actor who played Dracula in it is none other than Carlos Rodriguez. Yep. Now, he might be the good Dracula, but you know how Mexican actors are. They always overact. That's one thing about Mexican actors. They have a tendency to overact. But I was amazed by the actress who played Mina, none other than the lovely Lupita Tovar. And believe it or not, after they were done with the movie, the guy who made the Spanish film fell in love with Lupita Tovar, and they both got married, and she retired from acting after that. And then when Universal ended with Dracula, they decided to make a sequel. But I, Dracula, do not return. But somebody else took my place, and it is Dracula's daughter. Yes, Dracula's daughter. And the actress who played her is the lovely Gloria Holton. And a lot of people say that this was the first female vampire movie they ever made, and the first female vampire who is a lesbian. Even though they don't say it, they're kind of hinting it is. Which I have no problem. I mean, I met a lot of lesbian female vampires in my time. Most female vampires turn out to be lesbians, and others, they're pretty straight. Although there are some who can be a little bi. Anyway. And then they decided to make another sequel, which was not exactly part of Dracula, but it was part of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and they made this sequel, House of Frankenstein, where the actor who plays Dracula on this one is none other than John Carradine. Right, John Carradine, David Carradine's father. And he did the pretty good. I mean, he was no Bela Lugosi, but he was good enough. Until he had the chance to sign as Dracula when he starred in House of Dracula. That's right. He came back in the House of Dracula. And of course, that's what introduced the Frankenstein monster and the werewolf, and also the Mad Doctor and the Hunchback. Universal was the beginning of the Universal Monster crossovers. But all of a sudden, a lot of people thought of possibilities of crossovers. That's when one author wrote this book, Sherlock Holmes vs. Dracula. That's right, the world's greatest detective versus the lord of all vampires. And the book was popular enough, the BBC radio decided to make this, Sherlock Holmes vs. Dracula, the audio drama, which was very entertaining. Until Universal did it again when they decided to make another Dracula, and it was called The Son of Dracula, starring Lon Chaney Jr. Now, they're not exactly saying that it was my son, or was it me who pretending to be the son? But his name was Count Alucard, which that gave the inspiration for Castlevania. And a lot of people know that Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards. I mean, seriously, take the name of Dracula, starts with the A-L-U-C-A-R-D, Alucard. Simple as that. And then years later, back in 1979, there was a new Dracula play. I mean, here's the play. 1970s play of Dracula. And the play got popular enough that the actor who played Dracula decided to star in this movie. Dracula 1979. And the actor who played Dracula is none other than Frank Langella as Count Dracula. And Laurence Olivier as Van Helsing. Now, he was a very good Dracula, showed some sex appeal and all. Huh. Airplane. Kind of remind me of the Night Flyer. One of Stephen King's stories, which one of these days I'm going to review that. Note to self, review Night Flyer. Anyway, back to the story. And then when comic books became so popular, since back in the 70s, the comics cold was no more. And it was Marvel who decided to make me appear in this. Marvel's Tomb of Dracula. Now, I don't know if they're gonna use me on the MCU. I mean, since they did do a trailer of Morbius, the living vampire, and they're talking about the MCU version of Braid. If they want to have me in the MCU, I welcome it. A lot better than that Drake character on Braid Trilogy. Anyway, and then they have me dealing with other superheroes. Like they made this comic book, Batman and Dracula's Bloodstorm. But before that, there was a DC and Marvel crossover, and they made this comic book. DC's Batman meets Marvel's Tomb of Dracula. Although Batman and Dracula comic book inspired this animated movie, Batman vs. Dracula, the movie, which was made for the Batman cartoon series made after Batman Began. And then all of a sudden there was a company who goes by the name of Dale Comics. At first they started me out as, well, as usual, Lord of the Vampires. And here I look like in the comics there. And then they made me into a superhero and made me look like this. That's right. Dale Comic Books is taking classic monsters and making them become superheroes. Imagine that. And much to my surprise, Walt Disney got involved. Well, not Walt Disney himself, but the company Disney made this version of me. Look at this. Disney's Dracula, starring Mickey Mouse. Might be a chance that I might be part of Disney. Who knows? I mean, I always thought that Walt Disney was an anti-vampire. They don't even like vampires. But now they made Vampirina, and now they're doing Morbius and Braid. And then they did the comic book of the Disney version of Dracula. Who knows? Who knows? Until they decided to do a comic book where they bring back the classic Universal of Bela Lugosi again, when they made this comic book, Universal Dracula Comics. And then have the Universal logo and made this, Universal Monster Comics. Now, sometimes I kind of wondered what would happen if they took the original novel of the Bram Stoker's Dracula, but put it in the alternate world where I win. I reign supreme. So they made this comic book here, Anno Dracula. Anno Dracula is an alternate universe where I don't get killed by Van Helsing and his friends. I kill Van Helsing, and I run, and Mina becomes my bride, so now I am ruling Victoria, London, and I'm taking over Queen Victoria, and there's Sherlock Holmes involved, and other Victorian characters, and also I meet Vampire Lestat in it. Vampire Lestat from the Vampire Chronicles that Anne Rice been written. I mean, I do love Anne Rice, don't get me wrong, but I always wondered what would happen if I did meet Vampire Lestat and the other vampires. I mean, it's bad enough in the books. They made us Romanian vampires brain dead and act like animals. But anyway, moving right along. And then Universal made a deal with the Game Boy Advance and made this video game, Dracula the Crazy Vampire for Game Boy Advance. In the game, all I do is meet other vampires to join my army, and I meet other monsters to help, and I help them with their problems so they can join me as well. And I shoot bats at the Dobermans and people who wants to kill me. And that was the game premise. Until they decided to put me in TV shows. Now, besides the Van Helsing, like on the last review, they made this TV series right here, NBC's Dracula series. Now, after they made that TV series, before they made the TV series, that's when I know that Universal tried to do a remake of Dracula, me. So they made this, Dracula Untold. My thoughts on this movie is it was good, but not great. And it failed badly in the box office because it's just the same old cliche story. I was Vlad the Impaler, the Turks were trying to ruin other people's lives, my Romanian lives, my people, so I become a vampire to kill all the Turks. And one of the leader of the Turks kidnapped my son and also killed my wife. Unbelievable. And then they end it when I meet a woman who is Mina, who looks exactly like my wife. But sadly, they didn't make a sequel after that. Because that was Dark Universe for you. And now I'm hearing that they're planning to make a new Dark Universe of Dracula, but they don't know how they're going to do it. Because after all the failures, I think it's time to give it a rest. Oh yeah, and one thing I also remember, that's when I got myself into comedy. When Universal makes those Abbott and Costello movies, they made this. Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, and Bela Lugosi is back as Dracula once again. Which it was the Universal Monsters' last hurrah. But it was really funny. I can't get enough of Abbott and Costello. Those guys scare me. I mean, seriously. Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third. What are you asking me for? I don't know. First base. He's on first, and I don't care. Anyway, and of course, in this TV series of Dracula, they had this Van Helsing, except he wanted Dracula to take down a group of secret organization people who are ruling other people's lives. And then BBC got involved and made this movie. This series, I mean. BBC's Dracula. And this time, this Van Helsing, just like the Van Helsing series, this Van Helsing is a woman and a nun. And this Van Helsing and this BBC version of Dracula have more of a love and hate act. I mean, they both hate each other, but they do like each other at the same time. Interesting. And then Universal Monsters decided to make a video game, and all they did is make this. Universal Monsters Online Game. I guess there is no end for the Universal Monsters, except there was a novel I started to read, which I got to say was a good book, is this. The Return of Evil. Universal Monsters, The Return of Evil Dracula. I read the book, and it was really, really good. But of course, it involves all the other Universal monsters, so I didn't collect them. So, this is my review of Universal Dracula for today. If any of you like this, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more reviews. And this time, I'm going to have multi-voice reviewers show up to review Frankenstein. And I also heard that he's also found a monster who's also going to take over for him. And I also heard that he also found a werewolf that who's going to be doing the review of the Wolfman. Who knows? So, trick or treat and happy Halloween.